get away to now I knock on door and the guy is responsive and I've got an appointment. So now I didn't have a contract. I didn't have comps. I didn't have Zillow. I didn't have any realtors to work with. I didn't know what the values were. I didn't have a comp calculator. I didn't have an education. I didn't have Instagram Live to listen and learn how to do this. I didn't have anything. But I had an appointment tomorrow at 7:30 at night. I didn't have negotiation skills. I didn't know how to negotiate. I didn't have a repair sheet. I didn't have an iPad presentation. I didn't have anything, right? So what I did was the next day, I went to Staples, like Office Max and Staples, right? I went to Staples and I went and bought a purchase contract. And didn't know how to fill it out, never filled it out before. I brought one. I went over to his house, right? And at 7:30, and he wasn't there. He stood me up, right? The guy stood me up to my appointment. So then what happened is I went back the next day at the same time previously that I got in touch with him before, and he didn't open up. And then I went back the next day and he didn't open up. And I went back again the next day and he didn't, and his car was in the park, and I kept on knocking until he opened the door, and finally opened the door. He said, okay, well, meet me tonight at 7:30. So I said, okay. So he blew me off. He didn't show to the appointment. And I still persistently kept on knocking on this guy's door because there was the inkling of hope that it could potentially work, and that now I could potentially have an appointment and I could actually talk to somebody who wants to sell their house. So I went that night at 7:30. He actually was there and he opened the door. And I got into the house. It was dark. He didn't have any lights on. And literally, I was nervous, man. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up, right? I'm in this nasty house. I'm walking around. I don't know what to look at. I don't know what to, I've never evaluated a house before. I never got repairs. One of the guys that asked me on Instagram, he goes, give me a list of what I need to look for when I'm doing a house. Dude, just go. Just get up and go. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to have all your ducks in a row, man. Shoot the ducks. You just gotta go and put yourself out there and meet with a seller, and you don't have to know everything. So I went out there and I didn't know, right? I didn't know what, how to evaluate repairs. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew that I had to try to find a way, right, to get this guy under contract. So the day earlier, before I went, I called all the realtor signs and I found out what the properties were going for in similar size, similar properties, like properties that were 1,200 square feet or whatever. Shoot the ducks, yeah. The bottom line is I found out that most of the properties are going for 140, 150, maybe even 160,000. And I go over to this guy's house and I offer him $80,000, $80,000 for his house, right? He said absolutely not, but he said he would do. And see, this is why you always ask, right? So you make an offer to somebody, you say $80,000, and they go no. Then I came back, and I don't know where this came from. It's not like it was a negotiation technique. I said, well, where do you need to be to get the deal done today, right? I said, where do you need to be? And the guy goes, well, I said, if you can do $86,000, it's a deal. And I said, okay, fine. And I wrote the thing up for $86,000. I didn't know if it was gonna work. I didn't have cash buyers list. I didn't have an email cash buyers list. I didn't even know how to find cash buyers at the time. I didn't even know about bandit signs at the time, right? And I'm sitting there, I signed the contract with $100 earnest money, $100 earnest money, and for $86,000. And I leave that appointment more excited than I think I would have been since the day I graduated high school, right? Didn't go to college, I went to the Marine Corps, or the day I got out of the Marine Corps, man. I was excited. I actually got my first contract. I got my first contract. And I didn't, I was freaking out, right? Because now what do? I got a first contract, right? I had to go find a title company. Didn't have that. I had to go find a buyer. How the heck do you do that? Didn't know anything about that. That's brand new to me, right? Never did it before. Didn't have a buyer's list. Didn't have the internet, for crying out loud. So it's 2003, and I'm sitting there, and I have my contract. What do I do, right? So what do? I go out, and I talk to about 25 different title companies that all told me that they would not do seller financing. Said they would not do seller financing, right? Not my fault, not seller financing. What are you talking about? They wouldn't do double escrows. They wouldn't do double escrows. Now at the time, I wasn't doing seller financing. I just did a wholesale deal. So the guy said they would not do double escrows. They wouldn't do assignments, anything like that. So I talked to 25 different title companies, and all of them said no. The 26th title company I called, I talked to this lady. The name of the company was a small little title company called Metro Title, and the agent was escrow agent was Barb Bass. And Barb Bass, she's retired now. She did my first ever transaction in May of 2003, and she literally educated me and walked me through the entire process. She took the contract, explained what the next processes were. She dealt with getting the payoff on the loan. She dealt with the seller and got everything right. But so now I was excited. There is actually now, hey, it can work. Now, I had 25 people tell me no. 25 people said you can't do double escrows. 25 people said you can't do assignments. 25 people would not take the transaction from me. And I almost quit there. And I almost ripped up the contract. I almost said it's not going to work, you know? But remember, I made a decision. I'm going to make this work no matter what. So guess what? It was just another obstacle. One thing I learned in the Marine Corps back in the day is when you hit an obstacle, you got an option, right? You can go over the obstacle, you can go under the obstacle, you can go around the obstacle, or you can blow through the obstacle with a big ass grenade and blow the thing up and just go through it, right? So what happened was I came with that obstacle. I looked at every obstacle, every challenge as an obstacle where I got to find a way to get around it. So here's the thing. Here's what happened is I turned around and I had to find a buyer. I didn't know where to look for a buyer, so I opened up the newspaper of all places to try to find a buyer. And I found there's this one guy that was advertising these properties, right? He was advertising these properties that he was looking to sell, right? As like a lease or like seller financing. So what happened is I called the guy up. His name was Chad. I said, hey, Chad, I got this property over here in Glendale, and houses are selling in there for $150, $160, and I'm selling it for $98,000 and under $100,000. And he said, let me look at it. So now I had to schedule an appointment with the seller and this guy to go look at the property. Now, I've never done that before. I didn't know if the guy was going to talk to him. I remember I had a hard time getting in touch with the seller at the time. So I just did it. I just called the guy up, booked an appointment. I had his phone number at the time, I had his work phone number at the time, and I scheduled it, and I said, listen, I got an investment partner that needs to walk through the house real quick. First guy I found out of the newspaper, and he brought him over. His name is Chad. He came over to the house. He walked through the house, and he said, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm like, what? I was like, really? I was like, amazing. So he said, I'll take it. So what happened from there was, we went over to McDonald's that was right around the corner, and we sat down, and I asked him for a $5,000 non-refundable earnest money check. And he goes, how about we do $2,500? And I said, fine. And I said, title's open at Metro Title. Barb Bass will be able to handle the transaction. He signed the contract, and he gave me a check made out to Metro Title for $2,500 to secure the property. And I didn't negotiate with him. I didn't, put some, push on him or anything like that. I was just excited to get him to get the contract. So I did. So what happened from there was I gave the contract to Barb Bass at Metro Title, and she basically explained the entire transaction where he then was called up, the seller was called up to get the wire from the buyer, and literally within about 7 days, Now, I remember I used the same contract that I signed with the with the seller, I used the exact same contract. So I didn't know the language in there. I didn't know if it was geared to a buyer. There was no, there was like inspection clauses and all this junk in there that I would never put in a contract today. So what happened, I'm sitting there and Barbass is handling this whole thing. He wanted the property and he got his hard money guy, and they wired funds over to the title company. I remember I was there when the funds came in. She goes, yep, we got the wire. I'm like, wow. This guy put down maybe 10 grand and they wired in the balance, right? The balance, $86,000 was wired into the deal, and he was now purchasing the property. It actually worked. I was like, where's the money coming from? Where's this guy getting? Is he really gonna wire in $86,000? Is he really gonna do that? I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is amazing. I didn't think it was gonna wire in that much money. You know, who has that much money, right? I'm sitting there like, I'm broke. This guy's wiring in $86,000, and when it's coming from a hard money, what the heck's a hard money? I didn't know what that was, right? So what happened is she closed the transaction. And she told me, and I was there when it recorded. I was there when the seller signed. I was there. The buyer, he signed in his own accord. He just, came in and signed docs. He was real quick. But the transaction closed, and I essentially did my first deal. I did my first deal. Now, when that happened, right? Remember, my contract was for 86. His contract was for 98. After closing cost, I made $11,008 on my very first ever wholesale deal. And I want you to know, prior to that, I'm talking to my father-in-law, and my father-in-law is telling me, you cannot sell a house you don't own. Now, he has great intentions. He's a very positive person, but he also likes to know it all, right? And what happened is I was talking, he said, it can't be done. You cannot sell a house you don't own. He referred me to his realtor friend, and his realtor friend said, you're never going to get deals. Why? Because professionals get those deals. I did a double escrow on that, a double escrow close. So he said, you're never going to do it. My wife's like, are you sure this is going to work? I mean, she didn't know. She didn't know it was going to work. I didn't know it was going to work, right? I told some friends what I was doing, and they said, dude, are you kidding me? You're going to get a property under contract, you're going to sell it? I mean, or you don't even own it? That's freaking, you can't do that. You have to have cash or credit. You got to have money to buy these things, right? So what happened is I had so many naysayers. I had so many doubters. I had so many people telling me it's not going to work. I had so many people that were bursting my bubble. Now, I'm trying to blow up my bubble here by myself. I'm blowing as hard as I can. And guess what? I'm doing whatever I can to blow up that bubble, but I can't do it. It's not blowing up, and everyone's trying to burst my bubble, and I'm sitting there, and it sucked, right? It sucked bad. So what happened after that was, I closed the transaction, and I went up, and I picked up my first ever check. I picked it up. It was $11,000. It was $11,008, and I can tell you that changed everything. That changed my attitude. I mean, that changed and everyone that said I was crazy, everyone I said it wouldn't work. My father-in-law said you can't sell a house you don't own. The realtor guy that said professionals would do it. My friends that told me I were nuts. That was what's called a shut-up check. You gotta do whatever it takes to get your shut-up check. And it shuts up all the doubters. It shuts up the doubt in your head. It shuts up the people that don't think you can do it. It shuts up the people that says you need to have cash or credit to get in this business. It shuts up all that junk that's going in your head. It shuts it up. And there's nothing like the exhilarating feeling of getting that first check and knowing that you created created money literally out of thin air. You literally created money, right? And what your service was is you helped the guy out of foreclosure, because he was probably going to lose his house anyways. He was 3 weeks to foreclosure, and turn around and you lined it up with a buyer. The guy went in and fixed the place unbelievably beautiful, and he turned around, sold it, and made a bunch of money on it. But you helped the neighborhood, you helped the seller, and it was an amazing thing. And I was able to make $11,008 that changed everything in my life, right? And there was many times during the transaction when I couldn't find a buyer, when I couldn't get a contract, when I didn't know what I was doing, that I wanted to quit. And I can tell you today, there is a couple different turning points in my life, and I can tell you that was one of them, where massive change in direction happened. From that point forward, I put my head down and I started I was knocking on doors, and I was resilient. I had like a bulletproof vest on methodically, right? I've had it on, right? I had bulletproof vest on my head. I had Kevlar on. I used to be a Marine, right? And you know what? The negativity bounced right off me. The naysayers bounced right off me. The sellers that had their house in foreclosure that told me to get away, it bounced right off me. Everything bounced right off me, and I just kept my head down. I kept on knocking doors and figured out it was a numbers game. The more doors I knocked on, the more deals I got. And I realized that if I put forth the energy and I put forth the effort and I knock on more doors than anybody, then I can go out and I can make this happen no matter what. So what happened, and I'll tell another Instagram story of the second deal I ever did, and I'll even tell it on the third deal. All those were my massive shifts and things that changed in my life. In the third deal, I discovered marketing. Right? I discovered marketing. Before that, I was knocking on pre-foreclosure doors, right? So here's the thing, and I want to leave you with this because I got to run into this appointment right now on the secret project I'm working on. I want to tell you this, is that number one is that you have what it takes. Number one, you have to talk to yourself. You have to tell yourself how great you are, how you can make it happen. Where any obstacle that you hit, you're going to find a way to overcome it. You have the intention, you have the drive, you have the wherewithal, you have what it takes. You now have the internet, right? You have the internet. You can get comps, you can get comp calculators, you can get contracts. There's enough information to give you the inspiration. You can do it. Listen to success stories of other people that's done it before you. Listen to those people that get you pumped up and inspired that you can make it happen, and you can go out and you can achieve amazing success and amazing results, right? And put yourself every single day, and then go out and step into fear. I told a story the other day where Moses pretty much gave over to Joshua. Actually, he passed away, and Joshua got the helms for leading the Israelites into the promised land, right? And God gave him the inspiration, but he didn't think he could do it. He didn't think he had what it took, but God said, you know what, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be there. And he had to step into faith. So what happened with him is that he told the leaders, and they were standing at the bed at the front of the Nile River, right? And it was overflowing because it was season. The water was going over the banks, and they had to cross the Nile River to get to the promised land. And God told Joseph to tell the leaders to step in to that river, step in to that flood of water that's flowing. Step into it. Now, would you do that? Would you step into that river? If you believe God talked to you to step in to that river, would you do it? Right? But these leaders, they were like, I'm going to follow what he says. And they stepped into the Nile River, right? I mean, the Jordan, my fault. They stepped in the Jordan River. And what happened was, literally the minute their foot hit the water stopped. And it created this wall that just escalated like that. And they stepped into Jordan River. It stopped, and it created a path to the promised land, right? Your promised land is on the other side. Your promised land is there. Your success, everything you want is on the other side of fear. Was it scary for these guys to step in this massive flooding water? Absolutely. But they stepped in with faith. You have to take the first action. God says you have to take the step. You have to take the step of faith. And if you do, amazing things are going to happen in your life, right? Amazing things. So I'm telling you right now, step into faith. Face your fear, right? Overcome that. And you know what? Your life will change. Amazing things will happen. Things will line up perfectly for you. The right sellers will line up. The right buyers will line up. The right opportunities will line up. If you step into faith, into the fear with faith, right? You step into your Jordan River, right? It might be putting out marketing dollars without knowing if it's going to actually convert. It might be going to a seller's house when you don't think you can get it done. You don't know what to say. You've never done it before. It might be getting a property under contract and you can't find an escrow company and everyone's told you they can't do it, but then you do it anyways, right? It might be raising capital, right? So you can go out and you can buy large apartment complexes and do syndications and make that happen and go out and crush it, right? All I know is this, is that God would not give you this dream that you have in your head. Everything you want, the travel, you don't want to travel second class, right? You want to travel first class, right? You want to travel, get a first class ticket. You know, my wife and I went to the Plaza Hotel. We stayed in a suite overlooking Central Park. You want to do everything top notch, don't you? Right? And what happens is God would not give you that dream that's in your head, of everything that you want to have and everything that you want to achieve and all those things that you're striving for. He would not give you that dream unless he gave you the ability, the wherewithal, the person you are to achieve that dream. What he expects from you is you have to step into fear. You have to take the first action, step into fear with faith. And if you guys do that, you know what? Then guess what? You'll be on Instagram, you know, and you'll be telling people and inspiring them that they can do whatever they want. And they can go out and make things happen. So, guys, I love you guys. I got to go on this appointment. Have a phenomenal day. Go out there and crush it. Make it happen. Make it happen. And you have what it takes, and I believe in you. I know you can do it. There's not one thing you could tell me. That a reason why you can't do it. You know, you can do it. You have what it takes. And I know you're going to make it happen today. So go out there and crush it. Have a absolute awesome day and be blessed. Take care.